"I'm sorry, sir. Your card was declined again." The young pharmacist's voice echoed through the quiet CVS pharmacy. The 72-year-old man stared at his heart medication, $340 he simply didn't have. But when he rolled up his sleeve to check his watch, the pharmacist saw something that changed everything. A faded tattoo that told a story of courage, sacrifice, and service that this country had forgotten, but she never would. What happened next would remind everyone that heroes don't retire. They just shop at different places, and sometimes they need our help more than we need theirs. Welcome to Untold Heroes Stories. Before we continue this powerful story, tell us in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us honor those who served in silence. Robert Martinez was 72 years old and fighting two wars, one against his failing heart and another against the monthly battle to afford the medication that kept him alive. For 3 years since his wife Maria passed away, this routine had become his nightmare. Every month, Robert would drive his 15-year-old Honda Civic to the CVS pharmacy on Maple Street in suburban Denver. Every month, he would hope his Social Security check of $1,247 had cleared. And every month, he would pray that his heart medication hadn't increased in price again. But this month was different. This month, the price had jumped from $280 to $340. $60 might not sound like much to most people, but for Robert, it was the difference between eating and surviving. He stood at the pharmacy counter, holding his debit card with trembling fingers. Behind the counter, 26-year-old Ashley Chen was finishing her pharmacy residency at this busy CVS location. She had seen this scenario too many times, elderly patients unable to afford life-saving medications. "Let me try the card one more time, Mr. Martinez," Ashley said gently, hoping against hope that this attempt would work. The card reader beeped. Decline. Robert's shoulders sagged. He had $47 in his checking account. His next Social Security payment wasn't due for another 2 weeks. His heart medication, the pills that prevented another heart attack like the one that nearly killed him 2 years ago, might as well have cost $3,400. "I understand if you can't wait," Ashley said softly. "We can hold the prescription for a few days if you need to." "No," Robert interrupted quietly. I'll figure something out." He turned to leave. But as he reached for his wallet to put away his useless debit card, he rolled up his sleeve to check his watch. It was then that Ashley saw it. The tattoo was faded, blurred by decades and sun exposure, but unmistakable. On Robert's left forearm was the distinctive Budweiser insignia, the Navy SEAL trident. But it wasn't the commercial version you might see on T-shirts. This was different, older, more detailed, the kind that was earned, not bought. Ashley's breath caught in her throat. Her grandfather, Sergeant First Class Chen, had served in Vietnam. He had told her stories about working with Navy SEALs, about their missions, about the kind of men who earned that mark. He always spoke of them with a reverence she had rarely heard in his voice. "Sir, wait," Ashley called out as Robert reached the door. Robert turned around, confused. "Yes?" Ashley hesitated. She wasn't supposed to get personally involved with customers' financial situations, but this wasn't just any customer. "That tattoo on your arm," she said carefully. "My grandfather served in Vietnam. He told me about the Navy SEALs." Robert instinctively pulled his sleeve down, covering the tattoo. "That was a long time ago." "How long did you serve?" Robert was quiet for a moment, looking around the empty pharmacy. Finally, he spoke. 26 years, 1968 to 1994. Ashley's eyes widened. "You served during Vietnam?" 3 tours, Robert said simply. "Then the Gulf War and some other places that aren't on maps." Ashley felt a chill run down her spine. Her grandfather had mentioned men like this, the ones who did the missions that never made it into history books, the ones who came home and never talked about what they'd seen or done. "Sir," Ashley said, her voice steady but determined, "could you please wait here for just one moment?" Ashley walked to the back of the pharmacy and pulled out her cell phone. She scrolled through her contacts until she found the number she was looking for. Her grandfather's best friend, Master Sergeant William Rodriguez, retired Army Special Forces. "Uncle Bill," she said when he answered, "I need to ask you something important. I'm at work, and there's a customer here who's a Navy SEAL veteran. He can't afford his heart medication." There was a pause on the other end. What's his name? Robert Martinez. He said he served from 1968 to 1994. 3 tours in Vietnam. Another pause, longer this time. Ashley put him on the phone. What? Trust me. Put him on the phone! Ashley walked back to the front of the pharmacy where Robert was standing, looking uncomfortable and ready to leave. Mr. Martinez, I know this might sound strange, but I have someone on the phone who would like to speak with you. He's a retired Army sergeant, a friend of my grandfather's. Robert looked puzzled but accepted the phone. Hello? Is this Staff Sergeant Robert Martinez, SEAL Team 2? The voice asked. Robert's entire demeanor changed. His back straightened. His voice became firmer. Who is this? Master Sergeant William Rodriguez, 5th Special Forces Group. I heard you were having some trouble with your medication. Bill Rodriguez? From Fort Bragg? We did that extraction in Cambodia together in '71. That's right, Bobby. Jesus, it's been, 20 years since we last spoke? Ashley watched in fascination as Robert's face transformed. The tired, defeated old man was replaced by someone with purpose, with dignity, with a brotherhood connection that transcended decades. Bill, what are you doing calling a pharmacy in Denver? That young pharmacist? She's like family to me. Her grandfather was my team medic, and when she told me a SEAL was in there who couldn't afford his heart medication, well, that's not happening on my watch. 20 minutes later, Ashley's phone had rung 4 more times. Word had spread through what Robert would later learn was an informal network of retired special operations veterans who looked out for each other. First was Master Chief Petty Officer James Sullivan, retired Navy SEAL, who now worked as a contractor in Virginia. He remembered Robert from BUDS training in 1967. Then Captain Maria Santos, retired Army Rangers, who had worked with Robert during a classified operation in Central America in the 1980s. Then Chief Warrant Officer David Kim, retired Marine Force Recon, who had served alongside Robert during the Gulf War. By the time the call stopped, Ashley had a clear picture of who Robert Martinez really was. Not just a Navy SEAL, but a legend among legends. A man who had spent 26 years running toward danger so others could run away from it. But more importantly, she had something else, a solution. Mr. Martinez, Ashley said, hanging up the phone after the last call, I have some good news. Robert, who had been standing in stunned silence as his past literally called him back to life, looked at her expectantly. Your medication has been paid for the next year. Robert blinked. I'm sorry, what? Master Sergeant Rodriguez set up what he called an emergency brotherhood fund. In the last 20 minutes, he's collected $4,100 from your former teammates and colleagues. It's enough to cover your heart medication for the next 12 months. Robert stared at her, then at the phone, then back at her. I can't accept that. Sir, with all due respect, you don't have a choice. Master Sergeant Rodriguez said, and I quote, Bobby Martinez has bled for this country more times than most people have had hot meals. If he needs heart pills, he gets heart pills. Robert's eyes filled with tears. He sat down heavily in one of the waiting chairs and put his head in his hand. I thought they'd all forgotten about it, he whispered. Ashley knelt down beside his chair. Mr. Martinez, I don't think anyone who served with you could ever forget you. As Ashley processed Robert's prescription, this time paid in full, the calls continued. Not just from his military contacts, but from people whose lives he had touched in ways he had never realized. Captain Santos called back with additional information. Ashley, I need you to understand something. Bobby didn't just serve with us, he saved us multiple times. What do you mean? In 1987, we were on a reconnaissance mission in El Salvador, supposed to be routine intelligence gathering, but we walked into an ambush. 5 of us trapped behind enemy lines. No radio contact, no extraction plan. Ashley listened intently while preparing Robert's medication. Bobby was supposed to be 50 miles away on a different mission, but somehow he heard about our situation. He disobeyed direct orders, left his unit, and came looking for us. Found us 3 days later, dehydrated, wounded, and surrounded. What did he do? He single-handedly took out a 12-man patrol, carried 2 wounded soldiers on his back for 6 miles, and got us to the extraction point. He was court-martialed for leaving his post. Ashley stopped what she was doing. Court-martialed? The charges were dropped when our commanding officer learned what really happened, but Bobby never talked about it, never filed for commendations, just went back to work. Ashley looked over at Robert, who was still sitting in the waiting area, staring at his hands. How many people did he save over his career? We stopped counting after 50, and those are just the ones we know about. By the time Ashley finished filling Robert's prescription, the story had spread beyond the military network. Master Sergeant Rodriguez had called his local VFW post in Colorado Springs. The VFW commander had called the American Legion. The American Legion had called the local Veterans Affairs office. Within 2 hours, Ashley's pharmacy had received calls from the Denver Veterans Hospital, offering Robert free cardiac care, a local grocery store chain, providing a $500 gift card for food, a heating company, offering free winter heating assistance, 3 different law firms offering pro bono help with veteran benefit claims, a car dealership offering free maintenance for Robert's Honda, but perhaps most importantly, she received a call from Jennifer Walsh, the regional director for the Colorado Department of Veterans Affairs. "Ms. Chen," Jennifer said over the phone, "I need to ask you some questions about Mr. Martinez. We've been trying to locate him for 3 years. Why? He's entitled to veteran benefits he's never claimed, disability compensation, health care, housing assistance. Based on his service record, he should be receiving approximately $3,400 per month, not $1,247. Ashley's mouth fell open. He doesn't know? Many veterans from his era don't. The system was different then. Less information, more bureaucracy. But with his service record and medical needs, he qualifies for 100% disability compensation. What do I need to do? Just ask him to stay there. I'm driving down from the state office right now." When Ashley told Robert about the incoming visit from the Veterans Affairs Director, his reaction surprised her. "I don't want charity," he said firmly. "Sir, this isn't charity. These are benefits you earned, benefits you've been entitled to for years." Robert shook his head. "I get by fine on my own." Ashley sat down across from him. "Mr. Martinez, can I ask you something personal?" Robert nodded. "When you served, did you ever leave a man behind?" "Never." "Did you ever let your teammates go without equipment they needed?" "Never." "Did you ever tell wounded soldiers that accepting medical care was charity?" Robert was quiet for a moment. "That's different." "How?" Robert couldn't answer. Ashley leaned forward. "Sir, you spent 26 years taking care of other people. Now it's time to let other people take care of you. Not because you're weak, but because you've earned it." 30 minutes later, Jennifer Walsh arrived with a briefcase full of paperwork and a laptop computer. She sat down with Robert and began going through his service record. "Mr. Martinez, according to your military personnel file, you received the Bronze Star with V device 3 times, the Silver Star twice, and the Navy Cross once. You were wounded in action 7 times. You've been living with untreated PTSD and service-connected heart problem." Robert listened without comment. "Based on these records, you should have been receiving full disability benefits since 1994. The total amount you're owed in back pay is approximately $247,000. Robert stared at her. "That's not possible." "Sir, I have the documentation right here. Would you like me to show you?" For the next 2 hours, Jennifer Walsh walked Robert through 3 decades of bureaucratic failures. Lost paperwork, misfiled claims, computer systems that didn't communicate with each other, and a general assumption that if veterans needed help, they would ask for it. "The problem," Jennifer explained, "is that men like you were trained to be self-sufficient. You were told to complete the mission, adapt and overcome, never complain. So when you got out of the service, you applied those same principles to civilian life." Robert nodded. "That's how we were raised. But the system was designed to require advocacy. You had to know what benefits existed, how to apply for them, and how to navigate the appeals process when they were inevitably denied the first time." Ashley, who had been listening while managing other customers, shook her head in frustration. So veterans who needed help the most were the least likely to get it. "Exactly," Jennifer said. "The loudest voices got heard. The quiet heroes like Mr. Martinez fell through the cracks." Jennifer pulled out her laptop and began filling out forms. "We're going to fix this today. I'm going to file expedited claims for disability compensation, healthcare enrollment, and housing assistance. Based on your service record, these should be approved within 30 days. Robert watched in amazement as his life changed in real time. There's one more thing, Jennifer said. The VA has a new program called Veterans Choice, which allows you to receive health care at civilian facilities if the VA hospital is too far away. I'm going to enroll you immediately. She turned to Ashley. Ms. Chen, would it be possible for Mr. Martinez to have his prescriptions filled here instead of driving to the VA hospital? Ashley smiled. Absolutely. And I'm going to make sure he never has to worry about affording them again. Over the next few weeks, Robert's life transformed in ways he never could have imagined. The back pay from his disability benefits allowed him to pay off his mortgage, repair his Honda, and establish an emergency fund for the first time in years. But more importantly, the community of veterans that had rallied around him became a support network he hadn't realized he needed. Master Sergeant Rodriguez drove down from Colorado Springs every week to have coffee with Robert. They would sit in the CVS parking lot, talking about old times and new challenges. Captain Santos, who lived in Denver, introduced Robert to a support group for combat veterans dealing with PTSD. For the first time in his life, Robert began talking about the things he had seen and done. Chief Kim organized a monthly dinner for local special operations veterans. Robert, who had eaten alone for 3 years, suddenly had a circle of friends who understood him without explanation. Ashley had become more than his pharmacist. She had become the person who reminded him to take his medication, asked about his doctor's appointments, and listened when he needed to talk. You know, Robert told her one afternoon, I spent so many years trying to be invisible that I forgot what it felt like to be seen. Ashley smiled. Well, you're definitely visible now. That was an understatement. Word of Robert's story had spread through the Denver veteran community. The local VFW post had made him an honorary member. The American Legion had asked him to speak at their annual dinner. The Navy SEAL Foundation had reached out to offer additional support. But perhaps most meaningful was the letter he received from the families of men he had saved during his career. Families who had been looking for him for decades, wanting to say thank you. Ashley's decision to help Robert had consequences neither of them anticipated. Her story spread through social media, picked up by local news stations, and eventually reached national attention. CVS corporate headquarters called to commend Ashley for her customer service and announced a new program to help veterans access prescription assistance programs. The Denver VA office implemented new outreach procedures to identify and contact veterans who might be missing benefits. Local pharmacies began training their staff to recognize military service indicators and connect veterans with appropriate resources. But the most significant change happened at Ashley's pharmacy. We've had 17 veterans come in this month asking for help with their prescriptions, Ashley told Robert during one of his visits. All because they heard about your story. Robert shook his head in amazement. I never wanted attention. I know, but sometimes the best way to serve is to let people see what service looks like. One of those 17 veterans was Marine Corporal Lisa Rodriguez, no relation to Master Sergeant Rodriguez, a 29-year-old Iraq war veteran who had been rationing her insulin because she couldn't afford the full monthly supply. Another was Army Specialist Thomas Johnson, an 82-year-old Korean war veteran who had been living with untreated diabetes complications for 5 years. Ashley had helped both of them connect with veteran services and pharmaceutical assistance programs. Neither would have asked for help if they hadn't heard about Robert's story. You know what the best part is? Ashley told Robert. Every veteran we've helped has become an advocate for other veterans. Lisa Rodriguez now volunteers at the VA hospital. Thomas Johnson started a support group for Korean war veterans. Robert smiled. It's like a mission that keeps expanding. Exactly. 6 months after that first declined credit card, Robert found himself standing behind a podium at the Denver Convention Center, looking out at an audience of 500 healthcare professionals attending a conference on veteran health issues. He had never given a public speech before, but Ashley, who'd become not just his pharmacist but his friend and advocate, had convinced him that his story needed to be heard. "Ladies and gentlemen," Robert began, his voice steady but nervous. "6 months ago, I was standing in a CVS pharmacy, unable to afford the medication that kept my heart beating. Today, I'm here to tell you that one person's compassion can change everything." He told them about Ashley's decision to look beyond his faded clothes and see the person underneath. He told them about the network of veterans who rallied to help him. He told them about the bureaucratic failures that had left him without benefits for decades. But most importantly, he told them about the responsibility they all shared. Every day, veterans walk into your pharmacies, your hospitals, your clinics. Some of them are proud and won't ask for help. Some of them don't know help is available. Some of them have been let down by the system so many times that they've given up hope. Robert paused, looking out at the audience. "I'm asking you to look closer. Ask questions, make connections, because the next time a 72-year-old man can't afford his heart medication, maybe you'll remember that he might have spent 26 years protecting your freedom to practice medicine in peace." The audience gave him a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. After his speech, Robert was approached by dozens of healthcare professionals wanting to know how they could better serve veterans in their communities. But the conversation that meant the most to him came from a young pharmacist from Phoenix. "Mr. Martinez," she said, "I wanted you to know that because of your story, we've identified 12 veterans in our community who are missing benefits. We've helped them get signed up, and their lives are changing." Robert shook her hand. "What's your name?" "Sarah Chen. Ashley is my cousin. She told our whole family about you." Robert laughed. "It seems like the Chen family is in the business of saving old veterans." "We're in the business of taking care of people," Sarah replied, "just like you were." 1 year after Ashley first saw Robert's tattoo, CVS announced the launch of the Robert Martinez Veterans Assistance Program, designed to help veterans navigate prescription assistance programs and connect with VA benefits. The program was implemented in 500 CVS locations across the country and helped over 2,000 veterans in its first year. Robert was invited to the ribbon-cutting ceremony at CVS headquarters in Rhode Island. He stood next to Ashley, both of them wearing Navy SEAL pins that Master Sergeant Rodriguez had given them. "You know," Ashley told him as they watched the CEO announce the program, "I never thought that helping one customer with his prescription would lead to all this." Robert smiled. "In the military, we called it the butterfly effect. One small action creates waves that spread farther than you ever imagined. What do you think your wife would say about all this?" Robert was quiet for a moment. "Maria always said I was too proud to ask for help. She'd probably say it took dying for her to finally get me to accept it. She'd be proud of you." "I think she'd be proud of you too." Robert continued to live quietly in Denver, but his life was no longer defined by struggle. He had his health, his benefits, and a community of people who valued him not for what he had accomplished decades ago, but for the man he continued to be. Every month when he came to pick up his heart medication, Ashley would ask the same question. "How are you feeling, Mr. Martinez?" And every month, Robert would give the same answer. "Grateful." 2 years after their first meeting, Ashley graduated from her pharmacy residency and was offered a position as head pharmacist at a new CVS location in a predominantly veteran community near Fort Carson. Robert came to her graduation ceremony wearing a suit and the Navy Cross he had never worn in public before. "I have something for you," he said, handing her a small box. Inside was a military challenge coin, unlike any Ashley had ever seen. It was worn smooth, the edges rounded by decades of handling. "This was given to me by my commanding officer after my first mission in Vietnam," Robert explained. "He told me to pass it on when I found someone who embodied the values we fought for." Ashley looked at the coin, then at Robert. "I can't accept this." "Yes, you can, because you did something that very few people do. You saw a stranger in need and you acted, not because it was your job, not because someone told you to, but because it was right." Ashley wiped tears from her eyes. "Thank you. Thank you for saving my life." As Ashley began her new position, she carried Robert's story with her. She trained her staff to look for veterans who might need help. She established relationships with local VA representatives. She created a culture where every customer was seen as a person with a story worth hearing. Within 6 months, her pharmacy had identified and helped 47 veterans access benefits they had been missing. The military community around Fort Carson began to see CVS not just as a pharmacy, but as a place where veterans were understood and valued. Robert visited regularly, not just for his medication, but to talk with other veterans who were struggling. He had become an unofficial advocate, helping people navigate the system that had once failed him. "You know what I've learned," Robert told Ashley one afternoon. "Healing isn't just about medicine. It's about community. It's about being seen and valued. It's about knowing that someone cares whether you live or die." Ashley nodded. "That's why I became a pharmacist, not just to dispense medication, but to take care of people." "And that's why I served," Robert replied, "to protect a country where people like you could take care of people like me." Today, Robert Martinez is 74 years old and thriving. He receives full VA benefits, has access to comprehensive health care, and lives in a community of people who recognize his value. Ashley Chen is now a district manager for CVS, overseeing veteran outreach programs across Colorado. She carries Robert's challenge coin in her pocket every day. The Robert Martinez Veterans Assistance Program has helped over 5,000 veterans access prescription assistance and VA benefits. It has been adopted by other pharmacy chains and has become a model for how healthcare providers can better serve the veteran community. But perhaps most importantly, Robert's story reminds us that heroes don't stop being heroes when they take off their uniforms. They just become ordinary people dealing with ordinary problems that a compassionate community can solve together. The next time you see an elderly person struggling to pay for medication, or looking confused by modern technology, or seeming lost in a system designed for younger people, remember Robert Martinez. Remember that the person in front of you might have spent decades protecting your freedom to live in safety. Look for the tattoos. Ask about their service. Listen to their stories. And if they need help, help them. Because the greatest service we can provide to those who served is to ensure they never feel forgotten or alone. Have you ever met a veteran who needed help but was too proud to ask for it? Have you ever taken a moment to really see the elderly person in front of you in line? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this story moved you, subscribe to Untold Hero Stories for more narratives about the ordinary people who did extraordinary things and who deserve our recognition and support long after their service has ended. Because the most powerful stories don't shout. They wait in pharmacy lines, hoping someone will see past the surface and recognize the hero underneath. Until next time, remember to look closer. The person next to you might need exactly the kind of help you're able to give.